How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the Pennsylvanian Berwind. I am back from my little trip through interdimensional space and time, and I am back and ready to get to work on the P&B for real this time. And today, we're going to be bringing our attention down to the Highland area of the P&B, and the first thing that I'm doing here is blanking everything out and getting rid of all of the old assets and textures and everything in this area so we can start fresh and start with something new. And the first thing that we're going to be building here today is the oil refinery. I can't remember the name of this industry. I think it might be Standard Oil. I think this is a receiving facility that receives the tanker cars that are coming out of Old Town. And I could be wrong on that, but we are going to be working on this very specifically today. And over the next few episodes, we're going to be drawing our attention to the other industries along Highland here. And if you're not familiar with the Highland area, it's a bit of an industrial park. There's about 5 different industries here. We've got the oil industry, there is a scrap industry, there is an intermodal facility, which I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to deal with. We have our meat packing plant, which I am going to amend because we don't have cattle trains or livestock trains on this route. So I think I'm going to make that into a brewery. And then we also have a candy factory over here. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be going on in this area, and I'm going to be doing my best to not overdo it like I've been doing with, the Grafton area and some of these other locations on the P&B. But today we're just going to be focusing our attention on this particular industry, and that's kind of how I'm going to do things going forward over the next few episodes for this series. Just really focusing my attention on specific builds instead of whole areas, because I've just been getting too overwhelmed by trying to get too much done, and then I'm basically spreading myself too thin to the point where I'm basically spending time trying to cover area rather than actually design and develop some of these industries and detail them. So I really want to be able to bring my focus in a little bit more and get some more completed builds done. So I'll tell you, today we get the bulk of this industry done. I ran out of time to produce this video. I wanted to just get something out by this Friday. So I kind of gave myself a bit of a time limit to work with. So I didn't want to go over that. So we don't completely finish this industry here, but we get a lot of work done. There's a lot of details that we still have to add at the end of this, but I'll go over that as we progress. So the first thing that I'm doing here, of course, is laying out some of the roads. In this particular area of Highland, I'm keeping things on the grid and 90-degree orientation, mostly because I am really burned out from doing things on an angle. I've been working very hard on the North Carolina Transportation Museum, and despite the fact that that is a DEM route, the whole build is on an angle, like a 45 or like a 30-degree angle to the grid, and it's been really, really difficult for me to get things lined up and designed properly. So just for the sake of simplicity and my own sanity, I'm going to be building this on the grid within a somewhat 90-degree placement. And that's really just for me to be able to do this and not totally lose my mind. So that is the first thing I'm doing, is laying out some of the roads here and getting some of the main infrastructure in, the tanks and some of the other buildings. I was looking at at a location in Pennsylvania, some kind of like a tank oil refinery industry of some kind. I think it was near Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, or I'm trying to remember where it was. Maybe near Pittsburgh. I really can't remember the specifics, but it's a small industry. There's only 2 tracks that go into this facility, and it's kind of along a roadside. It has a very similar P&B vibe to it. So I've had that open, and I was using that as some inspiration for this particular build. And as I had stated before, I want to try to keep this a little bit more simplified and not go totally ham on this build like I've been doing. I don't want to totally over industrialize this area, although it may evolve into that. I don't want to just plan for that right off the bat. So my goal here, my plan for this, is to specifically do these industries one at a time and see how they will fit together and let it come together organically, rather than just making one big industrial park with all these roads that are going to link everything together. I'll figure out how to connect them later on, but I'm going to focus on individual things for a little bit and just we'll connect it later. It's not the end of the world to do it that way, and I think I can get more done that way. So yeah, the first thing I was doing here was trying to figure out where I was going to put the buildings, where I was going to put the tanks, and I wanted there to be a lot of piping around here also. I have no idea what sort of fluids are going to be moving through these pipes and which tank they're going to and from, and what the, the overall movement is. And to be honest, I don't really care. I just wanted to put some pipes down to add some structure to the overall scene, specifically sort of creating borders and lines to define where this industry is and the borders of the industry and the borders of roads. And that's one thing that I really like doing. That's one reason why I like doing handmade roads and using fences and things like that, is because it creates some kind of visual structure to follow and isolate some of these scenes from others. So that's been my technique, and I really wanted to emphasize that here. So trying to lay lots of pipes. I am trying to keep in the back of my mind, like, maybe what these tanks are holding and how the fluid is going to move from one thing to the other, but I'm not really putting a ton of thought into it. I'm really looking more for the aesthetic of adding pipes on the ground and in the air, and just adding a lot of different 3D visuals to this location so that it looks visually appealing. And that's always my goal when I'm doing a build, is to find something that is aesthetically pleasing and, functional to the point of it, working within the build and the quote unquote the railroad and that kind of thing. And because this is all basically, based off of my imagination, there's going to be some blips in reality here and there, and I think that's fine. In filmmaking, we call that suspending your disbelief, so we know we're in a fictional world here. This is just an interpretation of the real world, and that's all it's really meant to be taken as. So I'm adding in some of these walls around here. I know in real tank industries and tank farms and that sort of thing, they'd have like berms in between the tanks, but I haven't been able to find like a good asset for that, so I'm just using some of these dividing walls to act as a berm, and I think that that's a way to isolate leaks if there's ever a leak or a spill, and that kind of thing. Quick note about these toll booths. I know that they're backwards. I did fix this later on in the video off camera. I didn't realize it for a little while, but those booths are backwards. The gate is on the wrong side, so I had to flip the whole building around and move it. But for this segment, they are backwards. I do fix it later on, though. So let me think here. Yeah, that's kind of the main focus of this is trying to get the tanks down, trying to get some roads to make some sense in this facility, and I guess I'm just kind of excited to be finally making some progress on the P&B again, and feel like we're moving forward with this route, because I know I haven't been making a whole lot of videos or doing a lot of streams on the P&B lately, and I'll explain that in a moment. But it is still one of my favorite routes to work on, because it really does allow me to exercise my creativity. I'm not bound to something like a DEM or a real life location where I'm trying to copy it exactly as it is in real life. I could actually use some artistic license here and develop it how I want, put roads the way that I want, and just sort of let the route dictate what I'm going to do. And this is a perfect example right here. I wanted to add this sort of I guess you would call a service road around the tanks, and it passes underneath these suspended pipes, so I had to create some kind of a median here. And, just developing stuff like this is really fun to me. Figuring out how to put the road markings down, how I want the lines to look, and, how is it all going to come together, and that kind of thing. So this is just, a fun thing for me to do, to exercise that sort of sense of creativity. So I want to touch on really briefly, actually, about the lack of videos and lack of streams lately. And the truth is, I've just been super burned out, and I'm not talking about just burned out with this game. I've been burned out with like everything going on in my personal life, and then also with the game. So I've been taking a little bit of time away from working on projects in Trainz, and even taking a break from things in real life, just to sort of explore other creative outlets and just make some space in my mind for my own mental health's sake, because it's just, I'm not going to get into all the personal details, but I've been quite overwhelmed lately. So I've been needing to take a little bit of a break, and it's been doing me pretty good. So I'm excited to kind of get back into this, and I'm hoping I can keep this momentum going right now, because I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm feeling pretty inspired to work on the P&B and do some more North Carolina Transportation Museum stuff. So hopefully I can keep that momentum going, but bottom line is that's why I haven't been producing a whole lot of videos lately, is that I just needed to take a break because I'm just spent. My brain is just at capacity, so I needed some time off. And in the meantime, I've actually started to do some work on a small N-scale layout in my apartment here. So if you're following me on Twitter, you'll have seen some of the pictures and saw some of my tweets about how I'm planning it and what I plan to do with it. So if you want to follow that progress, go over to Twitter, because I'm probably not going to be posting too many videos here or pictures of it here. Maybe eventually I'll do a video or something like that on the N-scale route when it's complete, or I don't know, I'll figure it out. But that's sort of been a bit of my break and a different artistic outlet for me to explore, is just to get out of this game and do something that's a little bit more tactile, that I could actually get my hands on and get my hands dirty and, you know, have something that I can touch and work on, because that's just the kind of person that I am. I like being able to work with my hands, and working on a computer for the past year has been really maddening to me. So that's been really refreshing. And again, if you want to follow some of my progress on there, I'll be posting screenshots, not screenshots, it would actually be a picture. I'm working in real life, it's not a screenshot. So I'll be posting some pictures of my progress over on Twitter, maybe on Instagram, and maybe if I'm feeling like it, I'll eventually do a video of some kind of... I really don't even know what I would do if I was to do a video on an N-scale route, but maybe you guys have some ideas if that's something that you would like to see. So anyway, let's bring our attention back to the P&B build, what's going on the screen here. I've been using a ton of these JR parking, medians, the RDZ Median Splines. These were made by Nick over at JR. They are currently not available to the public, but I have been messing with them, and he has said that he will be releasing them at some point. But until then, I've been playing with them, and man, I'm using these things all over the place. I think you guys saw me use them in the last P&B video where I was working on the industrial park, or the commercial zone, commercial park, whatever it was, up in Grafton. I used those quite extensively. I've been using them like crazy over on the North Carolina Transportation Museum. They are just a really great asset for, again, like sort of drawing your eye to different parts of the map and just dividing your scenes out, dividing your parking lots out, creating some borders and perimeters along roadways and things like that, that need sort of a hard edge to feel like they have a start and a finish sort of feeling. So that's what I've been really liking about those. They do come in different widths, but I've been making use of the 12-foot has been probably my go-to, along with the version that has, it's like cut in half. There's not a curb on the other side. You'll see me use it in a few minutes. But so at this point, I'm beginning to try to work in some details. Again, I'm really focusing on some of the bigger picture stuff at the moment, and we'll get to some of the detail stuff towards the end. But one of the things that I noticed on Google is that this little industrial facility that I was looking at had a fire department, and I was like, yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, because if there was a fire at like a tank farm like this, you know, you would want to be able to have emergency services there like immediately. So I thought that was a really cool thing to bring into here, and I happen to have a small fire department building that I ported into the game, so I made use of that. Grabbed a couple of fire trucks and just parked them up front, so you knew exactly what it was. You know, we can work in some more details to that area as well in the future, but I really liked the idea of bringing that in, because that's just another little visual detail in the background that I think kind of makes this a little bit more grounded in reality, you know? So it's just one of those details to bring in. So working my way around the perimeter here, I'm adding some more road markings and some more walls. And yep, this is the other median spline that I've been using, which is pretty nice. And there's a ground texture, a grass texture that goes with it, so you can blend it into the terrain. So yeah, that's been really nice. So at this point, I think there's gonna be a big jump here, if I'm not mistaken. But I lay out a whole bunch of these roads around through this facility. The thing is, the prototype that I was looking at on Google Earth didn't have any road markings. The roads were kind of just implied, almost like you could just tell that there was a road there because there was dirt marks or tire marks in the dirt. Like it was probably like a poured gravel or something like that. But I have yet to really find a good way to create that look in this game. Like, maybe we need some splines that look like tire marks or something like that, or like a shadow. I'm not really even sure. So because I haven't been able to figure out a good way to do that in the game, I've just resorted to doing the road markings, which I think work pretty well in this facility. Like I said, it draws your eye around, and it's just visually interesting and nice to look at, and it's fun for me to make too. So it was a good excuse to do that kind of thing. You know, a good exercise in figuring out what the flow of traffic would be through here, and really thinking about the overall function of a facility like this. So it's a good exercise in thinking about the fundamentals of you know, an actual facility. So what I was trying to do here was create some kind of a road where the tank trucks who are either being loaded or unloaded at the truck facility there would have to go to the left to exit. Like, I didn't want them going straight because that goes up to the parking area and that service road. So I was trying to figure out how to like orient this to direct the traffic, you know, to the left. I eventually come up with a solution off camera. I think I just leave this and move on because I was like, oh, I'm spending too much time on this. People are going to get bored with it. So I moved away from that, and I do that off camera, so you'll see that in a moment, probably after this jump here. Another thing is that I want to mention, yeah, you can see the finished product there, what I came up with. The other thing I want to mention is this ground texture for this asphalt that I'm using here. I just discovered this. It's probably been around for a long time, but this is a new asphalt texture that I'm using, and it's got a really good color to it. It's not too purple, it's not too red, it's not too blue. So it's got a good tone to it, and it's got a good texture, I think. Like, when you really get up close to it, it really does look like aged asphalt, aged pavement. And it blends really, really well with the city gritty textures that I often use, which I do end up doing in a moment here. I start adding in some of those city textures with the oil spills and the cracks and stuff like that. So if you're looking for a texture to use for your handmade roads that's not like a total cracked mess and looks like, you know, pretty new, fresh pavement, this one is definitely great. I think it's just called asphalt or something like that. I'm sure you can see the QUID in the bottom right corner when I select it at some point eventually. Just keep an eye out for it. But like I said, it does blend really nicely with that city gritty texture with all the oil slicks and stuff like that. So definitely make use of that. So let's see, we just added in some signs here. Again, I want to add in as many road signs as possible because I like that as a detail. Here we go. Here's the texturing part. This is always fun to watch. So you can see that they blend really, really well together between the cracked and the not cracked stuff. So you can get some really cool effects with this if you spend some time painting it out and doing that sort of thing. So I always love this part. I love adding the ground texture down because I think that it really brings a lot of visual interest into any build. You know, this was looking a little bit plain just a moment ago. It's all just this sort of flat gray color. But the second you start adding this texture with the cracks and the oil slicks and that kind of thing, it really brings new life into it. And it makes it way more interesting to look at. So yeah, at this point, I'm trying to work in some vehicles here. I was trying to figure out what to do with this little triangular island here, and I thought maybe it's a good location to store some of the tractor trailer trucks that they would be using around this facility. So I worked that in a little bit, and maybe some more details in that area would benefit the look of that, maybe a fence or something like that. So now I'm bringing my attention over to this big negative space over here. I was trying to figure out what to do with it. I was really just going to fill it in with some trees and grass and stuff like that. And then I was like, you know what, maybe this would be a good location for some kind of an abandoned warehouse or something that this facility used to use or was present here before the facility, and it's just kind of gone defunct, and they're kind of like working around it and building around it. So I worked in some of these derelict buildings, and we're going to fill them up with some grasses and some shrubs and make it just look really grown in. And derelict, and I think the broken up asphalt texture really helps bring that to life because it kind of looks like it's just been, it used to be paved and now it's been taken over time by vegetation, and I like that kind of thing. So at this point, I'm trying to work in some more greenery into this big gray industrial area. Again, the facility that I was looking at on Google had a lot of trees, and it wasn't necessarily landscaped, I would say, although that's sort of what I was doing here is some landscaping, but there was a lot of vegetation that was sort of acting as a median around the property. And this is the point where I was trying to get some stuff done, and I was like, oh man, I gotta finish this up soon. So I'm running out of time is what it felt like. So, you know, this being sort of a semi-rural, semi-city industrial area, you know, it's not in the middle of downtown Grafton. I didn't want it to be all this big, you know, gray pavement asphalt empire. You know, I wanted there to be some vegetation to break it up and add some color to it, and that really makes a world of difference, as you'll see in a few moments here once I start getting some more trees and shrubs down and grasses. It really brings some visual contrast to this scene, and overall it brings it together really well because it breaks up that industrial vibe. I don't know, there's just something about this, you know, industrial piping and wires and, you know, pavement and stuff like that being sort of interspliced with nature, I guess, or, you know, areas where you know, wasn't completely paved over. You know, nature is going to find a way to grow some grass and some shrubs in those areas, and I really like the way that ends up looking. And you know, again, it's just sort of trying to distill things down from reality and bring them into this game as best as possible. But that's about all I've got for this particular build. As I said, as we progress with the Highland area, I'll figure out how to kind of close in the back and the sides, and we'll see how these industries are all going to interplay together. And I still need to make some decisions about what I'm going to do with the other industries, how I'm going to build them. But that'll come next in the next few videos. Hopefully, like I said, I can keep this momentum going and get back into this game and make a whole bunch of progress on Highland. Because the truth is, once I get Highland done, I really just need to fill in some of the main line between some of these spots, and phase 2 is getting kind of close-ish, you know, we're closer than it's been, I'll put it to you that way. But that's going to do it for this video. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching, thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.